Fasten your seat belts, ladies and gentlemen, because we are in for a treat here. This is the tie breaks of the Tepe Sigeman Co 2026, where Arjun Erigaisi and Magnus Carlsen have both ended the tournament, the classical tournament, on 5 points out of 7, and now are going to play a 2-game blitz match of 3+2. In case of 1-1 tie, we go into an Armageddon. And let's see who comes out on top. This is going to be a super exciting clash. The players are ready. Handshake, and Arjun opens with pawn to d4, knight f6, c4, e6. He brings out his knight to c3 and the Nimzo Indian is on the board. The fianchetto variation with g3 makes Magnus pause a bit, and Magnus castles. Bishop comes out to g2 and d5. You can see a mixture of Catalan and Nimzo Indian. Bishop goes back to e7 and Arjun goes queen d3, defending the pawn on c4. Magnus is taking a bit of time. It's very difficult to shift from classical mindset to blitz chess, but you have to do it. Pawn to b6 played by Magnus. He maybe wants to get his bishop out to a6, pin this pawn. How is Arjun going to react to this? He takes the pawn on d5. And Magnus is thinking a bit. Should he take with the knight? Should he take with the pawn? He decides to take with the knight. Interesting decision. Arjun can now simply develop his knight to f3. He also has this knight h3, knight f4 idea, which is very original. Or he could take on d5 as well. Let's see what he does here. He brings his knight out to f3. By the way, Arjun and Magnus did play against each other at the World Blitz Championship in Qatar 2025 December, and that was a crazy game where Magnus's pieces fell off and Arjun actually had won that game. Magnus would be looking for revenge. Knight to f3, and now black's main ideas are like bishop b7, knight d7 and pawn to c5. That way would like to equalize, but there's also a tempting option of bringing the bishop out to a6. He goes bishop b7, simply calmly plays it, and knight takes d5. Look at Arjun's time. He has 2 minutes 35 seconds. He's moving quickly. And Magnus is taking time. He's not yet switched gears actually. Castles. And now white's idea. Bishop f4, rook c1. Knight comes out to d7. And bishop f4 is what you would love to play. Yes, plays his bishop to f4. Pawn to c5. Attacking the center. And if Arjun lets it go supervised, then pawn could come to c4, b5, b3 played by Arjun. He's stopping c4. Magnus goes rook e8. This is always a good move. Looking at the e2 pawn, putting the rook on the half open file. Now the bishop can go to f6. The knight also can go to f6. Arjun goes h4. Magnus plays h6 in order to stop knight g5 ideas. Rook comes to d1. There will be pressure on the d5 pawn, but it's for now well defended by the bishop. Although the knight can move and the bishop can unleash. Too much of strategic thinking needed here, but you don't have time. You have to move quickly. Magnus goes a5. He's down to 1 minute 29 seconds. I think one of the ideas of a5 is bishop a6, put pressure on e2 with the rook and the bishop. And Magnus even finds time to drink a glass of water. I like how Magnus is calmly sitting there. Arjun goes pawn to a4. And now knight f6 makes a lot of sense. Defending the pawn on d5, controlling the e4 square. But Magnus has to take care of his clock. He's almost down to a minute now. Okay, there is 2 seconds increment, so bishop a6 with 1 minute 7 seconds. And Arjun comes back, queen to c2. Rook comes to c8. Magnus's pieces are coming into the game. He's feeling the flow here. I mean, you want to go queen f5, but suddenly your e2 pawn is hanging. You're not so sure if you need to make that move or not. He goes queen b2. But now there would be another pin. Bishop f6. You see the queen is being hit. First through the bishop, then through the rook, and now bishop f6 maybe. Although even knight f6 makes a lot of sense to put the knight in the center. He goes knight f6, but 46 seconds only left for Magnus. Arjun meanwhile has 1 minute 34 seconds. How should Arjun continue here? Should he go knight e5? Should he play e3? Rook c1? He goes bishop h3. And he tries to attack the rook on c8. Magnus moves his rook away to a8. Well, he could have potentially sacrificed that rook. And now Arjun goes bishop e5. Although both players have been playing really well, the position is equal here. You can go in any direction. And look at Magnus, he's so calm. Bishop f8, 27 seconds only. And now the rook and the bishop have lined up on the e2 square. Arjun brings the rook to c1 and knight jumps into e4. Somehow all the pieces and are protecting, but dc5, bc5 and the d5 pawn would definitely be a soft spot. Arjun takes on c5. And now Magnus has to decide what to play. B takes c5 seems like an option, but there's also bishop c5. He takes with the pawn. These are known as hanging pawns in the center. Bishop f5. Knight goes back to f6. And now you have to be careful because this pressure is too much. So he takes on f6, queen takes, pawn takes, and takes the pawn on d5. So Arjun now definitely slightly better because with equal pawns, Magnus's structure is a bit broken. Knight d2, the knight could go to c4, attack the a5 pawn. We have rook d8, offering a trade of rooks. And I think you can trade it. Or there's also a tactical idea, knight e4. If you take my rook, I take the pawn on f6 with a check and pick up the rook. Magnus down to 15 seconds, but Arjun taking a lot of time. He goes bishop e4 with 10 seconds. Oh my goodness. Rook takes rook, bishop takes, and now rook d8. He goes knight e4, saving the piece. Rook takes is met with knight takes f6. So f5 played, and now knight c3 only move. He goes here, bishop comes back to a6 because the bishop was also attacked. And Arjun comes back with the bishop b7. Magnus now playing really well here, really quick. Going into an endgame, rook d4. What a move. If you take cd4, the two bishops would be very powerful. He brings the king in. f4, boom. Takes, knight jumps to b5. He takes on g3. And now bishop c5, the two bishops are very powerful. Arjun offering a trade. Magnus says if you take, I'll get the two connected passers in the center. Knight jumps to c7, king comes in. Knight to a6, a blunder. Bishop d6, Magnus traps the knight. g4 takes and fg4, king d4, and now Magnus knows that he's winning. He pauses. He has even 15 seconds on the clock. And Arjun is lost because the knight is trapped. This is an age-old rule that a bishop 2 squares away from the knight is winning, and Magnus Carlsen wins the first game, played that endgame like a boss. And now Arjun, in order to have a chance in this tiebreak, needs to win on demand with the black pieces. Not at all an easy task against Magnus Carlsen, but well, no one told you that it was easy. Magnus, from trailing in the tournament throughout, now is in the lead. What a game that was. Really impeccable endgame by Magnus, and also Arjun played really well. And look at the players, they don't even take a break, they simply go to the other side of the board. Now Arjun has the black pieces, Magnus has white, and they adjust the pieces, and we are ready now to once again start rolling. Handshake, and Magnus opens with pawn to e4. Arjun goes for the Pirk defense, the same opening with which he had beaten Zuziner in round 6. It's Arjun's superpower, it seems. g6, knight f3, but can you beat Magnus with Pirk? That's too much to ask. And Magnus goes for the most solid line. This is also known as Karpov's system, because Karpov used to play it this way, and Arjun goes e6. Wow. And look at Magnus there. He's kind of like, what should I do to this line? It's a very weird line that Arjun has played. I have not prepped much. a4 played. And Arjun brings his knight out in the center. I think one of the things that Arjun has to do is create his chances somehow against Magnus and hope that he falters. It's such a difficult task to do that. You have to trust yourself. Rook b8. Okay, white's position is a picture of coordination. The two pawns in the center, the two knights, castling, a4, a5, h3 played, and h6. The bishop comes out to e3, so that now no longer knight g4 is possible to hit the bishop, and Arjun goes b6 here. Just making Magnus take some decisions, whether to push the pawn forward, to take the pawn, or to ignore it. I think queen d2 makes a lot of sense. But one thing that really Magnus may face is the fact that because he's already now a draw is enough, he might take some substandard decisions. Okay, Arjun is getting ready to strike in the center with c5 and d5. Okay, king h7, defending h6, bishop comes up to d3, lining up against the king here. You want to play d5, but then e5 you have to worry about. c5 maybe is possible. And look at Arjun, the way he's playing, he's played c6, and he has these 6 pawns on the third rank. You know, it's something like a hedgehog kind of a structure where you are saying, don't come near me. The moment you come near me, you will face the consequences. Although e5 is a very nice move. e5 takes, d, knight d5, knight d5, knight d5, and white is better here after something like rook fd1. But Magnus goes knight to e2. Slightly hesitating, as we said. For him, a draw is enough. And Arjun expands on the queen side. Knight goes to g3. And h4, h5 seems to be on the cards now. 2 minutes 23 seconds for Arjun, 1 minute 48 seconds for Magnus. Rook to b6 played, attacking the a6 pawn. Wow! Arjun has found some way to create counterplay. One thing is certain, like even if you lose the pawn here, white can come back with the rook and start putting pressure on a7. But the thing is, Magnus is now low on time. Arjun has 2 minutes 13 seconds. Magnus has 1 minute 30 seconds. Wow. b3 played, a decent move. 1 minute 17 seconds for Magnus. Somehow he's feeling the pressure, it seems. Okay, rook takes a6. Do we take it? Arjun says not so soon. First queen c7. And now Magnus goes c4. Takes. Pawn takes. Wow, look at this position that black has. All the pieces on the first 3 ranks. While white's pieces, oof, beautiful. The pawn has even reached a6. Arjun goes pawn to c5, trying to fix at least the c4 pawn so that the bishop can no longer open up. I think a good move is dc, dc and bishop f4. Magnus now has to take a decision. Does he want to push pawn to d5? Does he want to push pawn to e5? Does he want to take the pawn on c5? These are the questions that Magnus has on his mind. He goes pawn to d5, pushing forth. And will Arjun now close down the position with e5? You can see Magnus there not too happy with the position. Pawn to e5, knight h2 played. And do we simply take the pawn on a6? Bishop takes a6 and f4. Magnus is trying to now prove his compensation for the missing pawn, but already the bishop is now opened up. Knight d7, knight e5 would be a beautiful maneuver. Can Arjun find it? Yes, he does. Knight d7. Now the rook is attacked. You have to save the rook. Maybe rook a2. But then the knight jumps in. And you can see the feeling that Magnus has. He's not happy with the way he's played. He goes rook a2. But with 18 seconds. Meanwhile, Arjun has 1 minute 20 seconds. And Arjun jumps into the center. Knight e5 played. Takes, gives up the very important bishop, knight g4. Now attacking the bishop, the pawn here, but Arjun has an intermezzo. Bishop d4 check, king here, and knight g8. Beautiful chess, controlling all these squares. Amazing. And look at Magnus there. He's like, wow, I didn't see that one coming. He's now pawn down. Arjun is dominating. Will Arjun manage to equalize the score? e5 played with just couple of seconds on the clock. Arjun takes it. Knight e4. But now f5 is also coming in. Will Arjun manage to keep his nose? Plays f5. Knight at 6. What kind of tactics is Magnus unleashing? Arjun says, I don't care. I just take check. King g7. Check here on e6. And boom, rook takes. He's 2 pieces for a rook. And now just bishop c8 to attack this pawn and win it. Yes, finds it as well. Magnus tries to come in with the queen. But now bishop e6. Rook comes in. Rook f6 defending. The other rook comes to b1. Magnus is lost, but Arjun has to keep his calm. Pawn to e4. He goes bishop e2. And now knight f7. The queen is also pushed back. Totally winning position for Arjun Erigaisi. He also has 42 seconds. Takes the rook. Bishop takes. And Magnus brings the queen in. And now bishop d4. A wonderful move. And it's just losing. Magnus resigns the game. And Arjun Erigaisi scores a win on demand, equalizing the score. What an amazing game this is. And now the question. In the Armageddon, white will get 3 minutes. 2.5 minutes. Black will get 3 minutes. And a draw should be okay. Let's see who gets white. Well, in the Armageddon now, the final decider. Arjun gets the white pieces. And Magnus has black. So Arjun comes in. It's not the decider. It's basically, even if it's a draw, you will have another game of this. And now a handshake. And off we go. Arjun opens the game with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight to c3, plays pawn to d5. And the thing here is, in order to equalize the disadvantage that black has with the black pieces, white gets 30 less seconds. So there's not an Armageddon. It's just whoever wins this wins the tournament, or else we have the next game. Bishop d3 played. And now pawn to c6 by Magnus. You know, one of the things that Magnus has done in his career is that when in doubt, just play the Queen's Gambit declined. It can't be bad. It's such a solid opening. You have a pawn in the center of the board. You have castled. It's all looking nice. And Magnus, who has 30 extra seconds as he began the game with, burning it down. And Arjun, rook e8. He castles short. And one of the plans here is to go b4, b5, the minority attack. The other one is f3, e4, because your knight is on the e2 square. This f3, e4 idea was championed by Kasparov, Botvinnik. a5 played by Magnus, gaining space on the queen side. And a4 by Arjun. Knight to h5, offering a trade of bishops. A very standard way, because if bishop went back, you can take it with the knight. Queen e7 taken back. And now rook e1 played to get the rooks where they belong. Maybe one idea is now knight c1, knight b3 also. Arjun will be feeling the confidence in him. Knight to f6 played by Magnus. If Arjun manages to beat Magnus in Armageddon, that will be a huge breakthrough for him. It will also maybe be one of the biggest tournaments victory for him to finish ahead of Magnus. And now Magnus's knight on h5 does look a bit weird, to tell you the truth. But you can't trap it easily. There are pieces here. And what perhaps Magnus could do is play knight e4 and then bring his other knight back to f6. Well, Magnus is thinking so much that his 30 extra seconds is actually burned down to 30 less seconds. Wow. Okay, definitely Arjun is in the driver's seat. In a small way. Go Magnus, come on. Thinking so much. He goes knight e4, a good move. And maybe Arjun can kick the knight away with f3. He plays it, knight takes c3, pawn takes, and c5 played. So striking this structure. Maybe e4. And Magnus is threatening c4. You have the bishop b5 idea, which is tempting. Magnus will go bishop d7. Oof. Pressure. Also, another idea is to simply take, and maybe go knight b3 to put your knight on d4. I think Arjun taking the time to think, maybe rightly so. Plays pawn to e4, pawn takes pawn. And now if you take back pawn takes pawn, knight f4 to get this bishop. So Arjun now thinks through and takes on d5. Very nice move, because queen e1, rook e1, you get two rooks, but king f2, and white is the one who's clearly winning here. So can't give up the queen, goes back queen d8, and now Arjun can push c4. I think that would give him a nice position. Pawn to c4. Will Arjun play it? These are the kinds of decisions so difficult to make. He takes on d4. No, that's not a great move. Now these two pawns are a bit too weak. Also bishop d7 attacks a4. Knight f6, knight d5. He goes rook e1, and brings the knight back. So now the e8 square is controlled. The queen is threatening to take here. Clutch game, very important one. Bishop, queen b3, bishop d7 played by Magnus. He's still a pawn down, but clearly these pawns are a bit weak. Also the a4 pawn is a bit weak. He goes bishop c4, hoping to push the pawn to d6 and then unleash on the f7 square. Knight goes back to e8. Very nice move. The knight will be a great blockader on the d6 square. Taking the pawn on b7 is a bit risky after knight d6. So not a good idea to capture the pawn. Knight d3, Arjun comes in. Knight to d6. Attacking the bishop. He goes knight e5. And the knight in the center of the board. Queen h4. Oh, attacking the rook and the pawn. Giving up the bishop, but rook needs to be saved. So rook d1. Now the bishop is hanging. I think bishop e8. Magnus plays it. Arjun, 43 seconds. Both players down to 43. Who can't be more even than this? Rook c8. Brings the rook in. And Arjun Erigaisi. Does he go queen b6 in? He goes in. Queen to b6. Attacking the knight. These are the moments that crown the champion. If you manage to keep your cool here, you will win. But keeping cool in such moments not easy. Look at Magnus there. He had 44 seconds before this move and he takes the pawn with 25 seconds. The rook is hanging. So rook goes to a1, attacking here and here. Queen f4. What a move. If rook takes a4, queen e3 check and rook c1 wins. And if you take queen takes d6, there's queen takes d4 check and you lose the rook. Incredible move by Magnus. How did he even find that move? h3 with just 12 seconds. Wow. What a game. And now queen e3 check. Magnus, no, first goes bishop e8, saves his rook, saves his bishop because queen takes check and you still lose the rook. So rook takes a5, blunders here Arjun. Queen check, king h2, and now rook c1 should win. But he needs, draw is not enough, yeah, because draw means another game. It was not an Armageddon, remember. And so Magnus goes knight f5, is playing for a win. d6, Arjun threatening d7, no, rook a1, blunders. Queen e3, and he gives up the d4 pawn. And now knight g4, knight f3 check, and he loses the queen. Magnus Carlsen wins. And he is the champion of the Sigeman Co tournament. The Tepe Sigeman Co tournament 2026. And Arjun Erigaisi, he played so well in this tournament. He was leading going into the last round. But Magnus Carlsen proves once again why he's the GOAT and wins the tournament. We hope that you enjoyed this tie breaks. This is Sagar Shah signing off. Bye bye.